Algebra 3, Lesson 16, starting on page 122, deals with three different things. First off is complex fractions, then abstract equations, and then division of polynomials. My first question here is a complex fraction. So what we're going to do first is we're going to operate inside the numerator. We're going to reduce that, then we're going to work with the denominator, reduce that, get them down to single fractions, right, and then multiply by reciprocal, right, because I can't divide by a fraction, but I can multiply by the reciprocal. So let's deal with this. It's really not too bad. It just requires a lot of steps. All right, here I have a fraction minus a fraction. What do I have to have in order to subtract fractions? Common denominator. What's my common denominator going to be? 2x. In order to do that, I have to multiply my first fraction by 2 over 2, which is going to give me 4 minus 1, right? Okay, what's 4 minus 1 though? So my reduced fraction is 3 over 2x, correct? All right, do you understand that? That was pretty easy. Okay, now we come down to the bottom. Let's do this in a different color so we can see it. We've got 1 over 3x minus 1 over 4x. That's probably going to take a little bit more work. We're probably going to have to multiply both sides. But what would my common denominator be? 12x. Okay, I'm going to assume that we know by now we're going to multiply this side by 4 over 4 and this side by 3 over 3. Thus giving me 4 minus 3 on top, correct? What's 4 minus 3? All right, 1 over what? 12x, okay, which gives me a fraction of 3 over 2x divided by 1 over 12x. So as I write that, right, I got 3 over 2x times what? 12x over 1, which is giving me what? What's 3 times 12x? 36x divided by 2x. Can I reduce that fraction? What happens to the x's? They cancel out in this case. All right, so I'm left with 36 divided by 2. My answer is 18. Double check here. 18 is correct. Was that as bad as it looked? No. Okay, so we can do those. But we want to follow that order. Numerator, okay, common denominator, simplify. Denominator, common denominator, simplify. Multiply by the reciprocal, okay, simplify. So does that make sense? All right, great. All right, this is what brings us into some more complicated stuff. Usually I get a little deal where I can just erase it all, but it's not giving me that. Okay. All right, so for this, let's see. I'm going to carry this over to another page because this requires several steps. What I want you to know from the beginning, though, is you're going to work your way from the bottom to the top. Okay? All right. So in this first question, it gives you, 1 over p plus 4q over 1 plus 2 over r, right? That's the same thing you guys have. Sometimes what I have on my paper is different. Okay, so we're going to start with the bottommost problem that can be simplified. In this case, right, that is 1 plus 2 over r, right? Do we see that here? Yeah? Okay. Let me take that away because I want you to see we're going to have to rewrite this after we simplify it, okay? Or at least we're going to have to look at it a little differently. All right, so technically speaking, this is a fraction over, 1 is a fraction over what? 1. So if I can look at it as fractions, now I can simplify, correct? What's my common denominator here? R, good. So we see that we're going to multiply this by r over r, right? That's going to give me r plus 2 over what? R, okay? So that gets replaced, this r over 2 plus r replaces 1 plus 2 over r. Did I lose anybody? Okay, so as I rewrite this, and I'm going to show it rewritten, it's going to be 1 over p plus 4q over r plus 2 over r. Okay, so right here, I'm guessing Geneva, let's see. So this is r plus 2, right? It's really r over r plus 2 over r. All right, and that's how I'm getting r plus 2 over r. Does that answer your question? On the bottom, no. Whenever you're adding fractions, you only add the numerators, right? Your denominator, because it's a common denominator, stays the same. It's not. You're thinking the rules with like multiplication, right? Where you multiply the numerators and the denominators. Okay. All right. So that answers it for you. Okay. I don't want to lose you because there's a lot of places to get lost, and if we lose you at the beginning. Okay, so all I did over here in blue is just rewrote this. Okay, so on this first one, this was what I simplified. Okay, on my next one, what I have to simplify is this section right here. Okay, now what I want you to understand about this is 4q divided by the fraction r plus 2 over r. But again, 4q is a fraction. It's a fraction over what? So, okay, so I've got 4q over 1 divided by r plus 2 over r. Can I divide by that fraction now? What do I have to do? Multiply by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply by r over r plus 2. Okay, so that's going to give you 4qr over r plus 2. Does that make sense? Okay, so that was essentially step 2. Okay, so now I rewrite. So I have 1 over p plus my new fraction, 4qr over r plus 2. Now, do you see at this point, I'm kind of back to the same thing that I had in step number 1, right? Do you see I had 1 plus 2 over r? Now I have p plus 4qr over r plus 2. So I solve it the same way that I solved that other one, right? I set p over 1 plus 4qr over r plus 2. What do I have to have? Common denominator. What's my common denominator? R plus 2. So I got to multiply the numerator and the denominator. A lot of times people will stop doing this because it looks complicated, right? It is somewhat complicated, but it's not anything that you can't do. What am I going to have to do with the numerator, though? With this r plus 2 and this p? Good. Distribute. So I'm going to get pr plus 2p plus 4qr all over r plus 2. That's that simplified. It doesn't look simple, but do we understand that? We distributed the r to the p, we distributed the p to the r and the p to the 2. Okay? Because it's already a common denominator now, right? We just add 4qr on it. Okay? We're good so far? All right. Now, what do? I rewrite it. So what I have now is 1 over PR plus 2P plus 4QR all over R plus 2. All right. This brings me to step number 2, just what we saw right here. Okay, how I had 4Q being divided by R being divided by a fraction. This same thing is happening here. See how the pattern repeats all the way up in terms of how I solve? Okay? So, what do I need to do with 1? Okay, this is my final step. 1 is a fraction, right? I'm taking 1 and I'm dividing it by a fraction. So what do I can't divide by a fraction. What do I need to do? Multiply by the reciprocal. And because it's just 1 on top, my answer should just be the reciprocal form, correct? because I'm going to multiply by r plus 2 over PR plus 2P plus 4QR. Right? Well, that's just going to be this answer right here, because as I multiply by 1, am I changing anything? No. So that's my answer. Should be, let's see if I can. Yep, that's my answer. Looks complicated, takes several steps, but were any of those steps things that we've never done before? We have, we've gotten common denominators, right? We've multiplied by reciprocals. That's all I've done, okay, from the bottom to the top, okay? Questions about this? Are we taking notes? Okay, because if you don't practice it, you won't be able to do it. Okay? All right. Number 3 is pretty similar. Okay, it's different from the standpoint that it kind of ends a little differently, because it's 5 plus h over 5 plus 5 over 5 plus h. Okay, so this one starts with a different step. Okay, what does this actually start with? 5 over 5 plus h. Good. So I'm starting off with 5 over 5 plus h. All right. So what is this? What's my step here? What am I actually going to do? It's 5 divided by 5 plus h. Actually, no, that's pretty well simplified. We're not getting like 5 over 1 divided by 5 plus h over 1. That would give me the same thing. We are doing 5 over 1 plus 5 over 5 plus h. Okay? Sorry, I should have done that in red, so I'm keeping my steps separate from my redrawing. But what's my common denominator? 5 plus h. So I'm going to do that top and the bottom. Okay, what do I do with the numerator? Distribute. So 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times h is 5h plus 5. Okay, can this simplify here at all? 30 plus 5h over 5 plus h. Okay, that's what we're getting on this step. So we substitute this in for that whole section. Okay? All right. So now let's rewrite it. So we have 5 plus h over 30 plus 5h over 5 plus h. Can anybody tell me what we're going to do next for step 2? What's that? Multiply by the reciprocal. So what are my fractions that I'm multiplying? H over 1 times? Good. All right. All right, so now I'm multiplying. So h times 5 is 5h, and h times h is h squared over 30 plus 5h. Okay? So all of that is being substituted in for all of this. Okay? So as we rewrite it, we're getting 5 plus 5h plus h squared all over 30 plus 5h. Okay? What do I do here? Multiply by the reciprocal? No, because I'm adding these things. I need a common denominator at this point. All right? So what is my common denominator? Okay, good. So we're going to set this up. I'm just going to go ahead and show this as step 3. We're going to multiply by 30 plus 5h. 30 plus 5h. Okay? What's 5 times 30? 150. 150. What's 5h times 5? 25h plus 5h plus h squared. All right, we could probably simplify some of that, right? No? All right. What can I simplify? Okay, so I've got h squared plus 30h plus 150, right? All over 30 plus, or we could write it as 5h plus 30, right? 5h plus 30. Let me look at the answer sheet here, what I've got. H squared plus 30h plus 150 over 5h plus 30. That is it. How do we feel? We feel okay with that? Okay, let's see. What I want to make sure we're not going to run out of time here. 10:51. Okay, we need to move on to a different question type. Okay. Okay. 4 is real similar to number 1. Okay. So you guys should be able to do number 4. If I look at it here real quick, your answer to number 4 is B, which brings us to question number 5. Okay, question number 5. Says solve for t. Okay. We've got x equals v times ru over s plus w over t. Okay. So similar, at least in some respects, we're going to follow order of operations here. So I'm going to stay inside the parentheses. If I want to add these things up, I've got to get common denominators, right? So multiply by s over s and t over t. So what I wind up with is v times, this is going to be what, tru, right? tru plus ws all over st. Okay, now I have v times that, but this is really v over 1 times that. So I've got a fraction times a fraction. So I'm going to get, as I distribute, I'm distributing the v to the numerator, right? Okay, so v t r u plus wsv all over st. Okay, and we're saying that this equals x, correct? All right. Do we understand everything up to this point? Okay. What we want to do now is we want to get st out of the numerator. How do I get it out of the numerator? Multiply by it on both sides, right? Okay, so we're going to multiply by st and st. Okay, so that gets that out of the numerator. And we get xst equals vtru plus wsv. Now, how many of you are, anybody in here lost with anything? Yes? Who said yes? No? Nobody said yes? Okay, at this point, what I want to look at is what was it that I wanted to solve for? I wanted to solve for t. So now what I want to do is I want to get all of my t's together. So I've got a t over here, and I've got a t right here. So I'm going to bring from the right to the left, I'm going to bring this whole VTRU thing with it. Okay? So I'm going to get XST minus VTRU equals WSV. Okay? Now, I've got my t's together. What I'm going to do is I'm going to factor out t. So I'm going to say t times xs minus VRU equals WSV. Okay, do we understand that? Because there's a t in each of those terms. Okay, my final step is to get t by itself. How do I get t by itself? Divide by xs minus VRU on both sides. Okay? And that is my answer. It should be anyway. Let's see, let's look. It doesn't have to be in that order. In fact, mine is very... WSV doesn't have to be in that order so long as all those variables are there. XS doesn't have to be in that order so long as all the variables are there minus. Okay, do you understand the point? All right, and these will follow the same pattern every time you do them. Okay? That pattern is, okay, simplify your parentheses by combining or by getting a common denominator. Once you've got a common denominator, okay, consolidate or simplify. Then distribute the outside variable, okay? Then multiply by the denominator, okay? Next step is to subtract across to get my variable, my needed variable together, okay? My needed variable together. So pay attention to what that variable is, okay? Factor that variable out and then divide by everything else. It's the same thing every single time. They might be different letters, but outside of that, it's the same thing. Okay? So as we look at, right, number 6 is going to be the same type of thing. The only thing that you'll notice that's different here is that it has a denominator, which means whenever I go to multiply by this outside, I'm going to have to multiply the denominator by the denominator. Okay? So that not a whole lot more complicated that, and you've got a 5r instead of just an x, but it doesn't change the steps. Okay? So for number 7, let's see, actually number 6, well, let's see, in number 7 is, I want to say, number 7 is a multiple choice question. Number 7, you'll see, is real similar to what we did. You would get D for your answer if you want to try it out. Okay, which brings us finally to number 8. Number 8 and number 9. Let's do number 8. I think you saw stuff like this in Algebra 2 maybe, where we were doing, and we can use synthetic division. How many of you remember synthetic division? Synthetic division is really nice, right? Okay, so let's look at number 8. Number 8 says we want negative x cubed plus 2x plus 8. We want to divide that by x minus 2. All right, so if I set this up in synthetic division, I'm going to do negative 1, 2, and 8, correct? All right, so we take the coefficients, and then what we divide by is the solution to x minus 2. So we're saying that x minus 2 equals 0, so we add 2 to the other side, so x equals 2. Does that make sense? So we're actually going to divide by 2. I bring down the negative 1. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2, so I put that right there. Negative 2 plus 2, right, should be 0, right? 0. 2 times 0 is 0, right? 8 plus 0 is 8. So I should wind up with negative x squared. Let's see. Did I do something wrong? Let me look in here. Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay, good job. because there's no x squared, we put a 0, right? And then there's a 2, and then there's an 8. Okay, let's try this again. Negative 2, all right, and that's going to be, oh, I'm sorry, negative 1. Got to bring it down. I'll get this figured out here pretty soon. All right, 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. 0 plus negative 2 is negative 2. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. 2 plus negative 4 is negative 2. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4 again. Right? Did I make any mistakes here? Okay. Right, which would just be 4. So my answer should be negative x squared minus 2x minus 2 plus 4 over x minus 2. I'm going to check real quick and see if that actually did come out as the answer. Let's see, where are we at here on number 8? Negative x squared minus 2x minus 2 plus 4 over x minus 2. that's the way we want to do that one. Does that make sense? You should be able to do that with number 9 as well. You're just simply going to divide by 2. And if you work out number 9, you should get C as an answer. We can use long division, and sometimes we have to use long division if it doesn't come out as like a simple x minus 2 type of thing. We might have to use long division, so you need to be aware of that. I think today synthetic division will work for you, and it was a short day. So I did not think I was going to get through that.